I don't need to clap or anything, do I?
No.
Okay.
You're good.
We're going?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey guys, this is Steve for CollectorMania. We are doing our next deck in our series of 32. This is Omnath, Locus of Rage. We're getting to the end of the ally pairs here. One thing that you guys can check out if you want to is the other 4 videos for the ally guild pairs. And then of course we have the monocolored ones as well. So just click back on the 32 series and you can see the rest of them. Past this we will move on to the enemy colors. I believe we start off with Orzhov, if I'm doing my syncing right here. I never know 100%. So anyway, obviously, you know, click on our videos, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave some comments, tell us what we're doing right, tell us what you'd like to see changed, all that good stuff. With that, let's break into the deck tech here. We're doing another tribal deck. This is Omnath, Locus of Rage. I've done a lot of different tribes, you know, throughout my 32 series, you know, as you'll see later on. This is one of my favorite tribes, near and dear to my heart. It's elementals. It's ridiculously powerful most of the time. Lots of strong synergies built in with it, especially in the, you know, the whole Shadowmoor block. Pretty much, they put a lot of really cool creatures in there, and you don't really see them that often, honestly. I kind of arrived on this guy going through quite a few different variations. I used Marath for a really long time. Adding white actually did a little bit, but I really have noticed with a lot of tribal decks in general that trimming it down to the, you know, simplifying it usually makes it work a lot better. Red-green to me is definitely the most efficient color pair for these guys. It just seems to work the best. So anyway, that's Omnath, Locus of Rage. And then here, let's get into the deck here. One of our first creatures is Ashling the Pilgrim. Really cool little guy. You can usually do like a little bit of a board wipe, but this guy self-board wipe sometimes comes up in this deck where you just want to kill a bunch of little tiny elementals and deal a whole bunch of damage to people. So he's pretty good for that. I've actually seen this card used as a commander on its own before, and it works really well. And then we've got a little bit of elemental cost reduction with Brightheart Banneret. This guy's pretty cool. The Reinforced never really comes up unless I'm using it for like Fertilid or something like that, but sometimes it does become useful. Then we've got a Soulbright Flamekin. I really like these abilities that kind of build up on themselves, and being able to pay 2 colorless and just, you know, get a benefit and then in the end get a whole bunch of mana is pretty cool. Especially, you know, because this deck can mana flood sometimes really good. Then we've got a Tunnelingus. This guy is more for keeping your opponents under control. Really cool elemental. Having the 1 power or 1 toughness usually is a downside, but in this deck it's actually really cool. A lot of times being able to kill your own elementals just to finish somebody off is really useful. Then we've got an all-star of the deck in Fertilid. This guy pretty much does everything you want it to do. It goes and finds you a land. It can self-sacrifice itself, deal somebody 3 damage. You know, it all around is just a powerhouse. As you'll see, there's a few different ways to put +1/+1 counters on him. Not too many, but there's a few synergies in there. Like I said, with the Reinforced ability, but pretty cool card overall. Then we've got Grinning Ingus. I put this guy mainly in here just for fun. I really like the card. I usually use him in more of like the Animarch type builds where you're just like gaining a whole bunch of mana and huge benefit. But this guy can become useful, like if you're just a few mana off on playing Omnath, you can kind of get him out a little bit earlier, and you know, he's just a cool little creature. They've got Incandescent Soulstoke, kind of an elemental buff, so can make your elementals a little bit stronger, plus being able to put an elemental into play and then have it self-sacrifice is great. Once again, you want your stuff to be sacrificed. We've got Inner Flame Igniter, just another one of those kind of build-up guys. We've got a little bit of protection from control decks and Mind Sparker. It honestly hasn't really done that much in games. This, you know, as pretty much all my decks are, this is kind of a work in progress, so you'll notice a few cards in here that may be shifted around at one point. He was a pretty cool idea in the beginning, I thought. Hasn't really panned out too much. I've got a Spawn Wraith, great for making a whole bunch of elementals, really. Being able to swing in, get a token, and then swing in with this guy and that token and make 2 more tokens is great. This card is ridiculous most of the time. Undergrowth Champion, just kind of a guy that synergizes with both themes of the deck. It's an elemental first, and then it also deals with landfall, which, you know, it's an Omnath deck, so it just makes sense. Then I've got Changeling Berserker. I think I've had this in 3 of my other decks. This card's just really cool for being able to defend creatures that are really important to you. So like if you know, for example, somebody has a board wipe in their hand and you just need to save your commander or something like that, just throwing this guy out there, champion him, and then it's saved for when the board wipe actually happens. Not the best reset, but it definitely helps. A newer card, Charging Cinderhorn. This guy's pretty cool in this deck. It definitely can kind of screw up those control players, you know, the guys that aren't necessarily going to attack. You know, if they have a Hand of Ship's Navigator and that's the only creature they have, they're not going to attack with it, which means they're going to take a bunch of damage usually. This will build up pretty quick. I've even not attacked on my turn just to get counters on this thing. Pretty cool elemental. Plus it has haste. We've got Forgotten Ancient, kind of like we were talking about with the Fertilid. This is one of those ways to put +1/+1 counters on it. Plus it can just buff your army up, which is pretty cool. Then we've got Obsidian Fireheart. This is one of my buddy's favorite cards, kind of. It's a way to deal a bunch of damage to people kind of sneakily. It actually, you would think 3 mana is a lot, and especially double red, but with this deck it can pay for it all day long, and you can usually hit a couple lands. It's a really cool card. Plus it's an elemental, so there you go. Then we've got Terra Ravager. This guy can get ridiculous, especially if you're going up against other ramp decks. Can become a giant monster and just swing in and hit somebody in the face. Plus if they block it with enough creatures to kill it, then they're taking 3 anyway. And then we've got our first kind of evoke elemental, Ingot Chewer. This guy's great. Usually you're just going to use him for his evoke ability. You're going to destroy an artifact and then deal somebody 3 damage. Just basic awesomeness. Really cool ability. I've been looking for more evoke creatures to actually put in here. I'm sure I'll find, you know, all of them eventually. Then we've got a Magma. This is one of our sack outlets. It's not the best, but it works. It kind of deals its own damage and it deals the 3 damage from Omnath as well, so it works pretty well. Then we've got a Malingus. This is usually the biggest creature that we have. Comes out and is usually a 20/20, you know, because you know somebody's usually at 40, you know, or something like that. So pretty intimidating force, I'd say. I've got a Skull Muncher. One of the big things that I noticed early on with this deck, as I said, it's a work in progress, but card draw is definitely a thing. It's not an aggro deck per se, but it definitely puts a lot of creatures out pretty quick, and then you go through your hand pretty fast. So being able to refill that hand is great. This guy also has the double impact of being able to sacrifice your elementals and deal that damage. So he's kind of a 2-in-1 package here. Pretty cool card. Then we've got kind of a pseudo Cascade and Thicket Elemental. It's not straight Cascade, of course, but it's pretty cool. Great ability. You're usually casting him for 7. You know, unless you're desperate, you're not casting him for 5. You're casting him with the kicker. Pretty cool card. Then we've got a Thornling. This is another buddy of mine favorite card. He destroys us with it, or used to destroy us with this. I don't think he plays it anymore, but he had a reanimator deck of sorts, and it would just destroy us each time. The amount of abilities on this card are ridiculous. It could be a Planeswalker, for all I know. And then we've got Titania, Protector of Agrath. Really cool card. Comes in and gets you a land from your graveyard. There is a fetch land in here, and there's a couple other lands that kind of self-sacrifice and go to your graveyard. The card is ridiculous overall. It makes an elemental token for you. It does pretty much all you want it to do. Now we've got a house. Really, this card's ridiculous. I know that a lot of people are actually taking out their acidic slimes and changing it to this because it is an impact when it hits the board. And that's Bane of Progress. This guy is absolutely bonkers. It is probably the most efficient way to just, I don't know, shut down an artifact or enchantment deck. It is ridiculous what it can do. Plus it usually becomes a giant monster. And then we've got Gravesifter, just kind of a way to kind of recur things. Pretty cool elemental card. I didn't even know it existed until I looked up elementals. It's kind of, I love the artwork too. I know I focused on the weird things, but Gravesifter, really cool card. Then we've got a Green Warden, or I can't even say the other word. Anyway, Green Warden. It's kind of the Eternal Witness of the deck. It's obviously costs a little bit more. Pretty cool card though. It comes in and does pretty much the same thing. Plus you can exile it from your graveyard to get something a little extra back. So pretty cool elemental. Then we've got a card draw engine and Soul of the Harvest. Plus it has trample and it's 6/6. Another one of our evoke creatures, Spite Bellows, can usually handle an intimidating creature or so, something like a Shieldred or something like that. Pretty good. Gaia's Revenge. This card has destroyed me several times. I finally put it in a deck. I know some people use it as like a bant finisher. You know, it's definitely effective for what it does. Just not being able to be touched by non-green spells is ridiculous. It's an awesome card. Then we've got Hate Flare. Cool kind of untapped synergy here with just being able to deal somebody some damage, you know, stuff like that. Plus it has Wither, so pretty cool. Then we've got a Regal Force, another way to draw a bunch of cards. Really important, like I said earlier. Plus it's 5/5, not a bad body on there. Then we've got Tyrant of Discord. This card's pretty ridiculous, a lot of fun to play. Usually your opponents have to read it a couple times to figure out what exactly it does. 7/7 all now. Okay, and with that we're going to transition into our artifacts here. There's not too many in here. There's a few. I try to keep it light just because, once again, playing the Bane of Progress, you don't really want to destroy your own stuff. So, anyway, we've got the ever important Elixir of Immortality. Just being able to shuffle our graveyard back into our library is pretty important. Then we've got a little bit of card draw here again with a Skull Clamp. Once again, the kind of theme of the deck is to get your elemental sacrifice, so why not put this on there and draw some cards while you're doing that. Then we've got a Sword of the Amunis. Another really kind of, I love this card, being able to swing it with a creature and then go grab a land from the deck and put it in. Awesome, awesome card. After that we've got a Eldrazi Monument, just kind of a way to get your team past their defenses. So if no one's taking the bait on blocking your creatures and then killing them, you might as well just kill them with your creatures. Your 4/4s or 5/5s can usually get that done when they have flying and +1/+1. Okay, and then on from that we'll move on to our enchantments. A lot of these are kind of based around either sacrificing your stuff or getting extra lands into play. First up we've got Evolutionary Leap. This is a great sack outlet. It lets you find your next elemental to play, which is really good, really important. As I've talked about before, it has a tendency to play its hand out and then not have anything to do. So just being able to find a creature when your other creature dies, awesome. And then we've got Elemental Bond, kind of another way to kind of draw cards and refill your hand. Just play an elemental that has power 3 or greater and then you draw a card. Pretty cool. Rites of Flourishing, we all know what this does. It's kind of a wacky card. I generally don't play it because it is kind of one of those group hug cards, but it works really well in here actually, just being able to put another land into play, and usually the extra card draw for your opponents doesn't really do that much for them, because you're going to kill them pretty quick. Then we've got Shared Animosity, one of my new tribal favorites. I actually played against it this last weekend, and now I'm trying to find a copy for every deck that I have. If you'll notice here, I have a proxy because I need to order this card. It is ridiculous. Being able to give all your creatures +1/+0 for each other creature that shares a type with it is awesomely dumb, in my opinion. Like, I don't know why this thing exists and why it's not seen more. I need one for like 5 decks, so really cool card. And then we've got kind of another kind of, it's not necessarily a card draw, but it's a way to kind of like set up your draws. With this card, Abundance, not a lot of people play it because it is kind of, I don't know, it's lackluster in a lot of ways, but in this deck it can actually be really effective because most of the time you want to draw a land, or you can just set up for whatever you need, really. Real cool enchantment. Ooh, and then we've got one of my favorites. Whenever I've played this card and Omnath has been on the board, it's been ridiculous because usually you put it on him. Elemental Mastery, it took me forever to get a hold of this thing. It's kind of surprising, but being able to tap the creature and put that many elementals into play, and they're just 1/1, so usually they'll die pretty easily, is ridiculous. You can usually just finish an opponent off with this. It is an amazing card. And our last enchantment, I believe, is Zendikar Resurgent. Great card draw engine, and then a way to kind of double up your mana. This will kind of put you ahead of the game really, really quick, and usually will win you the game if it sticks out there for 2 or 3 turns. It is ridiculous. This card, I love it. Okay, and with that we're going to move on to our instant spells. There's actually quite a few in here. I was kind of surprised when I tore the deck apart to do this deck tech. It kind of surprised me, the number and then the kind of variation on them. Usually I try to make these type decks a little bit more creature heavy, but I don't know, these just work. So anyway, our first one is Heroic Intervention. Being able to kind of avoid those board wipes and then kind of survive, somebody's Wrath of God or whatever, it's ridiculously beneficial. Plus, this has the added benefit of if somebody's just going with like targeted removal on your Omnath, and that's all you really need to win the game, you can just save them by giving them hexproof. So, really, really cool card. And then we've got a little bit more removal. We've got a Naturalize, just being able to get rid of, pesky enchantments and artifacts. Signal the Clans, this will usually kind of help you find your important elementals. Usually I just find like Titania and like, I don't know, Hate Flare or something like that and put, do the whole random thing. Pretty cool card, I actually really like it. And then we've got a Beast Within for a little bit more removal. Downside of giving him a beast, but it can get rid of pretty much anything. Frozen Grip, that split second, can't get over that. Then we've got some instant speed ramp, natural connection. I have noticed as I've taken this apart that there really isn't enough mana ramp in here, so I'll probably be adjusting that here pretty soon. Kind of get, I don't know why I didn't put Kadama's Reach or Explosive Vegetation in here. When you're trying to build so many decks, sometimes you get a little bit lost. But anyway, this card works pretty well for what it is. It's instant speed, rampant growth, really. The instant speed actually kind of matters because, sometimes if they're setting up for a board wipe and you just want to go grab a little bit more damage, you just use it and make an elemental and then shoot somebody for 3. Pretty cool card. Then we've got a Realms Uncharted. Works really, really well with the theme of the deck, which is lands. Usually you can get, some pretty important lands out of this, so pretty cool card. And with that, I believe we're moving on to our sorcery speed spells here. The first one up is interesting. It's newer to me. I've never really put it in a deck before, and the approach was I'm going to try new things out with this. So it's fun. It's worked out once. It's Animus Awakening. It can be a house if you are lucky and you have enough lands or enough mana to pay for a bunch of lands to come into play and have that spell mastery. It can be ridiculous. Just make a whole bunch of elementals. Pretty cool card. Then we've got a card that should be in any Omnath deck, which is Tempt with Vengeance. This card will win you the game, especially if people are crazy enough to, give you some more elementals. It is ridiculous. This card's insane. And then we've got a Rampant Growth, just basic land search. A little bit more card draw and a Harmonize. Pretty straightforward card. Then we've got one of our finishers in Overrun. I'm honestly thinking about switching this out for a Beastmaster's Ascension. I think that would be a little bit better, but this card does give him Trample, so I mean there's the trade-off there. I don't know. One-time effects are kind of cool sometimes if you're going to win the game right there, but I think overall the Beastmaster's Ascension would be better. Then we've got a Shamanic Revelation. This card is ridiculous. It can draw you a whole bunch of cards and gain you a lot of life, so it's kind of one of those 2-in-1 packages. Kind of that one's big brother, Collective Unconscious. It can draw you a ton of cards. It's okay. I might try and grab a Sylvan Library for this deck, when I have a little bit more money. And then we've got kind of a newer card here, an Insult and Injury. I figure, you play this, and then if you want to Blasphemous Act yourself and just kill the entire table, that might actually work out really well, because it will double that damage that Omnath is doing. So instead of 3, you'll do 6, which is pretty crazy. I doubt that I'll ever use the second ability on this card, but the first ability is good enough to include it in here. Then I've got a Rishkar's Expertise, just a way to draw cards and, maybe play some awesome, ridiculous free thing from your hand, like Titania or something like that. Then we've got Treacherous Terrain. Mainly I use this card for the land cycling early on just to grab an extra land, but late game it can come up to where it can destroy your opponents for you as well. The focus, as you've already seen, is really just dealing chunks of damage to everybody all the time, and this card definitely kind of fits that theme. Plus it's, like I said, the land cycling usually comes up and is actually pretty useful. And then I believe this is our last sorcery here. We've got Blasphemous Act. Really the de facto board wipe for like red-green in my opinion. I pretty much see this in every build. Really cool card, deals a lot of damage to everybody's creatures, usually wipes the board, so pretty cool. It usually only costs 1. Okay, with that we'll get into our lands here. First one up is the Blighted Woodland. It can help you, with Omnath, of course, being able to get 2 lands and put them into play. Plus, if you happen to have that Titania, it can grab it back and then you can do it again. Awesome card. Then, of course, a land that should go in every commander deck and Command Tower. And then we've got Flamekin Village. This card is extremely useful in this deck. I've tried it in several different decks, but it just makes sense in here. Obviously, being able to have it come in untapped is what you're looking for. So yeah, Elemental Tribal Land. Then we've got our dual lands here. We've got a Gruul Guildgate, a Gruul Turf, a Rugged Highlands, and then kind of a budget option for, like I'd probably have a City of Brass or something else in here if I could, but Rupture Spire, it's okay. It does what it needs to do. Then we've got a Temple of the False God, not bad, a Vivid Grove, and then a Wooded Foothills. Nice having a little bit of fetch land action going on here. And I believe the rest are forests and mountains. I believe there's 14 of each, and pretty straightforward there. But yeah, that's Omnath, Locus of Rage. Like I said, it's kind of a work in progress. It's one of those tribal decks that I really enjoy playing. But with that, that's the end of the deck tech, and we'll see you guys next time.